people argue that religiosity causes or leads to income inequality. So one argument is that when people are more religious, they can cope better with adverse life events, and they have a low incentive to fight serious shortcomings in life, such as income inequality, and this leads to the persistence of inequality in society. There is a related but distinct literature that studies the relationship between religion and state welfare spending. So this literature argues basically that religion and state welfare spending are substitute mechanisms for providing social insurance. For example, again, there are two different views here. Some of them, this is, people who adhere to the secularization hypothesis. They argue that in countries with higher welfare spending, there is less need for religion to provide social insurance, so religiosity goes down. On the other hand, other authors argue that when in more religious countries, social insurance is provided by the interaction of religious people, and so there is less need for state welfare spending. But these studies do not study income inequality, the impacts on income inequality. So what we do in this paper is bring these two literatures together and synthesize. So we propose an alternative theoretical mechanism that can simultaneously generate the findings in these two literatures. What are these two findings? Positive correlation between religiosity and income inequality. At the same time, negative correlation between religiosity and state welfare spending. We want to offer a new mechanism. And in our mechanism emphasizes religion's role in providing incentives, that is, rewards or punishments for charitable actions, and in particular, we are going to focus on charitable giving. So that is, some religions provide greater incentives than other religions for people to engage in charitable activities, including charitable giving. So McCleary calls this salvific merit, but we can more generally call it the salvation motive. So all of the world's major religions have in their teachings a linkage between charitable actions in this life and personal condition in the afterlife. So there's a connection. Most religions argue such a connection. And variations in the belief in afterlife translate into differences in the incentives for charitable actions. And there are lots of empirical studies now that show that religion is an important factor determining individuals' level of charitable giving. Horioka showed, for example, Horioka compared Japan, China, India, and the United States, and showed that India and the United States are more religious than China and Japan, and they are, India and US give a lot more in charity than China and especially Japan. Japanese people Japanese did not contribute much in charity, and they were the least religious at the same time. So there is this correlation between religiosity and charitable giving. And I can give you many more examples from other countries, including Taiwan, the United States, Europe. Most findings point to this direction. Oh, I'm very sorry. So in our mechanism, causality will run from religiosity to income inequality. So in more religious countries, there will be more inequality, income inequality. And we are going to formalize this mechanism within an explicit formal economic model. Our model is a general equilibrium political economy model, as in Meltzer and Richard, 1981. And we are going to incorporate religiosity into this framework using the Azzi-Ehrenberg framework, 1975. What did Azzi and Ehrenberg do? They, in their model, individuals maximize intertemporal utility function that depends on secular consumption and expected afterlife conception. So life does not end by death. There's an afterlife, and people try to maximize their utility both here and in the afterlife. They have a formal model of that. And time, both time and money devoted to religious activity, including charitable giving, determine the level of afterlife consumption. So how much time and money you devote in this life to charitable activities will determine your personal condition in the afterlife. They have a formal model of that, and they model this they say there's a satisfaction individuals get from spending time and money on charitable actions, and this in turn increases their afterlife consumption. Our model will provide conditions under which the positive relationship between income inequality and religiosity holds. We are going to show that this relationship may not in fact be true, and for it to be true, there has to be certain conditions. I'm going to talk about that. Here, we need to distinguish between measured and actual incomes, because there are, when people calculate income inequality measures using measures such as the Gini index, they use income measures. But these income measures are calculated by surveys or other sources, and they are not ever perfect. Actual incomes can substantially differ from measured incomes sometimes, and this may make the observed relationship between measured income inequality and religiosity a spurious one. In fact, I will show that in our model, we show that religiosity and actual income inequality need not be positively correlated. But measured equality, yes. Then what we do in this paper is that we test our model's predictions using cross-country data. Let me say a few more words about the mechanism in our model. So there are two opposing effects of religiosity on income distribution. One increases income equality in the economy. How does this happen? So with higher religiosity, people want to spend on charity and spend privately rather than through the government, the state. They want to do this by themselves. And this means a preference for a smaller state. So religious people may want a smaller sized government. This means that the government will have less resources to spend on redistribution of income, and when there is less redistribution of income, there will be higher income inequality. Okay, so this is what I call the equality reducing effect. But religiosity also has an equality increasing effect. And this is rather obvious when people want to spend on charity to give to other people. There's more redistribution, and this reduces income inequality. When the rich gives to the poor, obviously the income distribution is more equal. So there are both effects, but the latter effect, the equality increasing effect, remember that this is made through private donations. So for example, you give to your neighbor, and this is not captured in government statistics. So this second effect is usually not very well captured in income measures, and so we don't see that. Anyway, so what we have is an economic model. I don't know how much I should go into this, maybe very briefly. What we have is three actors in the model. We have a continuum of agents, a large number of agents, who differ in their initial incomes. Everybody is the same, but they have different income levels, denoted by W. There is a private charity in the economy who collects donations from people and then make donations to people in need. And there's also government. The government, I will talk about the government in a second. So agents, they are heterogeneous in their initial incomes, and they have preferences. this is the important part. Their utility depends on C, consumption. This is secular consumption in this world. Also on afterlife consumption. Z here is the donations they make, but this translates into afterlife consumption. This is as the Ehrenberg framework. And the lambda coefficient is the intensity of the satisfaction they get from making donations. So this, and the G variable is the government-provided public goods. So agents get utility from consuming in this world. They get utility from donating because this produces afterlife consumption. And they also get utility from consuming public goods. Anyway, so this is the framework. The government, what does the government do? It raises a flat tax from people and allocates some fraction of it to redistribution, so gives it to people. And the rest, the government spends on public goods such as roads and other things. What does the private charity do? The private charity pools donations from people, so people put their donations in this charity, and then this charity redistributes a constant amount B to each agent in the economy. So to simplify, we assume that donation is not used to finance the public good, but this is just a simplification, doesn't change the results. Anyway, so let me show you the maximization problem. So given the tax rate in the economy, the amount of governmental redistribution V, and the amount of donation received B, agents choose consumption and afterlife consumption, secular consumption C, and afterlife consumption Z to maximize their utility subject to their budget constraint. So their budget constraint, so they either consume in this world or donate Z, and their income is what is left after taxes, 1 minus T tau times W, and what they get from the government in transfers, and what they get from the private charity, which is B. So this is their final income. They allocate this into consumption, secular consumption, and afterlife consumption. So we can solve this model, and we get the optimal decisions, secular and afterlife consumption decisions of the agent. Then let me go through here really quickly. We then find the equilibrium of this economy. What happens in the equilibrium? And then we come to this point. So remember that people have different income levels. And this translates into different differences in preferred tax rates. Let me show you the picture. This is an interesting picture. So on the horizontal axis, you have the income levels. So there are different people with different income levels. And on the vertical axis, you have the tax rate, the preferred tax rate by each individual. You see that poorer people want higher tax rates in the economy. Richer people want lower tax rates in the economy. So which tax rate is going to be the tax rate in the economy in equilibrium? This, so you have to make a decision about how this collective choice is made. And we consider a median voter rule, which means that the person with the median income in the economy chooses the tax rate. So this is a simplification. And this, so we can get the results after that. What we show is that we show that an increase in the strength of belief in afterlife reduces the equilibrium tax rate in the economy. So more religious countries will have lower tax rates. And they will also have lower governmental redistribution and lower provision of public goods. And there will be more income inequality in the economy. So then we conduct an empirical analysis. We collect data on many countries around the world, both rich, poor, advanced, unadvanced. They have different, for example, there are people adhering to various religions in each country: Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, etc. And some countries have state religions, like Sweden, for example, Iran, etc. Some countries don't have state religions, etc. We control for GDP per capita, size of the informal economy, etc. And what we do is we find what we found theoretically. So we find that countries with high levels of religiosity have higher levels of measured income inequality. We find that countries with higher levels of religiosity have smaller governments, and they have less governmental redistribution, less provision of public goods. And now I can conclude. So we have offered a novel mechanism that links religiosity with income inequality, and this is not based on explanations that emphasize the role of religion in providing personal security and a coping mechanism with socioeconomic hardships as in previous papers. So in our mechanism, in order to be able to spend more of their incomes on charitable giving, the religious people vote for levels of taxes as compared to secular individuals. This results in a smaller government size, implying smaller government spending on public goods and redistribution, and lower levels of redistribution in turn results in higher levels of measured income inequality. And cross-country data is consistent with these findings. I stop here. Thank you very much.